Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to our Friday morning Lenten reading. My name is Juan. I'm one of the ministers at Unity on the Bay. And well, during the Lent season, outside of the other programming that we have going on Facebook and Facebook Live and YouTube, we've been doing this Wednesday and Friday 10 a.m. morning piece where we just read from the wonderful book from Unity World headquarters on or about uh, Lent. Like, it's a daily devotional that they have. And there it is. You can still get it on our website, Release and Renew 2022, a spiritual practice for Lent. And so Reverend Chris and I have just been reading that day's devotional. I'm just going to wait a little while here and see if some other people are going to come on and join us and be a part of this reading today. There we go. Oh, good. Well, hello and welcome. So again, we've been reading from the devotional, and for Friday, April 8th, we are looking at complaining and releasing our need to complain. See, the way that the booklet is done and the way that we've been invited to experience the Lenten season, this time of preparation, is to look at what we want to release and let go of, right? And be intentional about that, and then move into, well, what do we want to have in its place, or even just looking at, what are some of the things that we want to let go of, and what just rises up when we are able to get rid of or not be controlled by old patterns or old ways of thinking. And it's funny that today's is about complaining because, on my way to drive Lucas to school. Hey, Carla, you might you might relate to this one as a mom who drives uh, G to school. But we were in the car this morning, and whatever, something came up, and Lucas had a little bit of an attitude, and so then I told him to not have attitude, but I said it with attitude, and he caught me and he said, well, you're having attitude right now. And it just reminded me once again that sometimes I respond to the things that I don't like with the same energy that I say I don't like. Sorry, that's my cat jumping in and out of a box at our dining room table. That's why I was wiggling. But has that ever happened to you? It's like you complain about somebody's attitude, but you complain about it with attitude, right? Or you don't like somebody complaining, and they complain so much, and then you find yourself complaining about that person, right? And so it really did remind me to take a step back, and this reading it really drove it home for me. I'm glad that you relate, Carla, and I'm not the only parent in the mornings having some of these things come up. But I want to read to you the devotional from today, which starts with the affirmation, I release any need to complain. Now, tomorrow's is the affirmation is sort of like what happens instead when we sort of let go of our need to complain. It says, I renew my outlook through appreciation. And I'll share with you how I think those are related after the reading. But so for today, Friday, April 8th, I release any need to complain. From Luke chapter 10, verse 40. Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me. Martha complaining about her sister Mary may be the best known instance of complaining in the Bible, but it is far from the only one. When we feel frustration, fear, or anxiety, we often complain. When we hear ourselves, we can reflect on whether it's a rare instance or a lifestyle. Jesus answered, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. Like Martha, are we worried and upset and complaining about many things? Or like Mary, are we focused on what's truly needed? Agitation is usually triggered by some deeper wound that needs to be healed. If we identify this wounding and spend time healing it, we will likely release the need to complain when the feeling arises again. Our time is better spent on a solution to what's happening than registering a complaint. And from Exodus chapter 16, verse 2 and 8. The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And Moses said, "Your complaining is not against us, but against the Lord." And so, what are your thoughts on that reading? What are your thoughts on being invited to look at how we complain? Do you find that you often go into complain mode? And even if it's not often, do you sometimes go into complain mode and later on you sort of like look back and think, maybe that wasn't even needed? I think sometimes we can be complaining. When we stop ourselves, we realize that some of the things that we complain about are so minor, you know? I'd love for you to share with us maybe some of the complaints that you've realized were like, whoa, like where did that even come from, right? Like, not a big deal. Like I said, I complain about Lucas complaining. Um, One of the things that I was remembering is, sometimes I complain when my husband Tom comes home and buys something at the supermarket that we already have. So he'll buy an extra bottle of ketchup because he didn't realize we had already a bottle of ketchup, and I make it a bigger deal than it needs to be. And this reading really invites us to realize that there's better, our time is and energy are better spent on other things, and including the affirmation and the reading for tomorrow. That's really all about renewing our outlook through appreciation. It's like, I can see that, right? Like, even in this instance with the extra ketchup bottle. Well, if I'm complaining, if that's what I'm focused on, rather than being focused on what I can appreciate, I do have an issue about the extra ketchup bottle. But I could have also had an understanding that, wow, Tom went to the supermarket, right? Like, I didn't have to go and buy the other stuff that he bought, right? And focus on that and see how that can just continue to grow in energy and in consciousness, my appreciation for all that my husband does for me and my family. So yeah, Mikey, I'm with you, right? I think this is just part of the human condition, and the great thing about it is that, although we like to catch ourselves right before the complaint, even looking back on it and maybe regretting it or just knowing that we could have done it a little different, that already is quite a bit of an awakening, right? Because so many of us have experienced ourselves complaining without realizing that there's a different way. And so at least we now know that there is a different way. And now the practice is, how do we remind ourselves earlier in the process so that we don't have to look back with regret, right? And definitely, Amy, as you're mentioning, that deeper wound can be there, right? Like, I imagine that if I really sit with the extra ketchup bottle, part of it is, do I feel like I'm doing more and I'm always having to exert myself more, or that I need to feel that people are, that I'm worthy, right, of having somebody pay attention to me. And so when somebody doesn't remember something that I think is important, something gets triggered in me, And so part of the work, I think, is figuring out practices to um, remind us that the complaining won't necessarily make the shift in energy that we want to see, right? Like, a lot of times when we complain, it doesn't really change the other person. It just changes our energy. It changes our field. We bring ourselves down rather than even making a positive action or positive steps in changing behaviors around us. right? And then the other part is like when we do recognize that we're triggered or about to complain, to just ask ourselves, like, where does that come from? Right? One of the things that I have started to do with Lucas, my 9-year old, when he's gone into some of the complaining, is just ask him, is it worth it? Like, if you think complaining is going to be worth it, you get it out of your system, go ahead, Lucas. But is it worth it? If you sit with it, is it worth you being upset over? Is it worth it you verbalizing your complaints? Or is it better for you, not for anybody else, but for you to just let it go, right? To stop ourselves from complaining. A few years ago, many years ago, uh, there was a Unity minister named Will Bowen who wrote a book called Complaint Free World. Some of you may remember it because I remember Oprah, did a whole thing on it. And it was just really inviting us to look at how many times we complained. It invited us to look at having 30 days of no complaints. Think about that. Do you think you can make it? How many days can you make it without complaining? Maybe this is an invitation this week. Just try maybe this weekend to not complain. How about we make that pact? Each of us that are watching. Look at that. Good, Mikey. Thank you. And so those of you that are watching in this moment or that may be watching it after the fact, um, can we all commit to really working to not complain this weekend? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll commit to it. Yeah. That's why I went to the weekend, Amy. I thought the same thing. But you know what? What if we are able to do it through the weekend and realize that we can maybe push ourselves a little bit more and do a few more days after that? Good, Mikey. I'm glad you're in, Amy. Let's see, Carla. Sometimes it's a deeper wound, sometimes it's Miami traffic. So I've had to be very practical in my approach, and that helps. So now when I'm cut off, I say, oh, they probably had to go to the bathroom really, really bad. That actually works for me. I love that. Yes. You know, complaining can, if we sit back, actually, thank you, Carla, for your sharing because it makes me also remember that sometimes our complaining are just based on stories that we've created for ourselves. Like somebody shouldn't be driving that crazy through Miami traffic, you know? And yet, do we know the full story? What if somebody's in the car and they're about to give birth, right? Like I could see myself speeding through Miami traffic to try to get somebody to the hospital to give birth, right? And so even just uh, even just switching the story, not even saying like, oh, I don't know the full story. Maybe we create a different story in our minds that makes it okay or makes it enough so that we can step back and not complain. So thank you for that, Carla. Well, so I think we've spoken about complaining. I think we've spoken about how it stops us from appreciating. There's ways of us being able to shift the stories. And these are some of the tidbits that we can use as some of us have now committed to working this weekend on no complaining. So, how about next Friday when we come back to this part of the reading? We'll check in with each other and see how we did this weekend. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Hi, Aurora. Hi, Molly. Welcome, and thank you for being a part of it. I appreciate you all. Please join us this Sunday at Unity on the Bay. It's Palm Sunday, and we're going to have a great time really looking at where we're at with our own spiritual journey as Palm Sunday is really a time of reflecting on the spiritual journey that Jesus took, especially during Holy Week. So, looking forward to connecting with you then. Have a wonderful weekend, complaint free weekend, and we'll see how we do. Take care, everyone.